Jay here for Stretford, Paddock, and this is the one-on-one interview. Joining us today is an old mate of mine, Jamie Jackson, who covers Manchester United for The Guardian and The Observer, and he's got a book out. It's called Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, The Making of Manchester United's Great Hope, and it's the Red Apprentice. It's all about Ole, not just as a manager of Manchester United, of course, but as a player and going back to his childhood and all sorts. A real in-depth look at the man himself. Jamie, first of all, thanks for joining us, mate. Just wanted to ask you, obviously, you spent a lot of time on this book. You haven't just brought it out now, but what made you decide to write a book about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Why did you think, right, this is the book I need to write?
Well, he just started, or been a couple of months as the caretaker at United. So we're looking at like February of last year. And obviously everyone knows the goal in 99, which is a fairy tale. I don't care who you are, who you support. That is a fairy tale way to win any cup competition, but particularly the biggest club cup competition, I'd argue, in the world. Last minute coming on as a sub, etc. But also, I thought how he came back to United as the caretaker manager was another fairy tale. So as a writer, there's a lot of story there to go at. He's a very interesting character to write about. And also, there hasn't been a definitive kind of biography. I sort of always say to people, he's a little bit like any of these famous people who you know through the media and maybe not personally. You know what you know, but there isn't a heck of a lot beyond that. Very good example is Elvis. I thought I knew Elvis's story, and there's like a 2-part biography of him that I read some years ago. You come away from that thinking, crumbs. Yeah, I know all the stuff, how he died, all the fame, all that, but all the stuff behind it, who he is, how he ticked, how he got into it, how he got his first record deal, how Solskjaer got his move, for example, to United. It's really fascinating. So that was kind of the idea. And so, yeah, it was interesting because, as an example, he nearly went to Spurs, and that's how the book opens. He was scouted extensively by Spurs, by their sort of chief scout, a guy called John Moncur, whose son was John Moncur Jr., the player who was at West Ham, Spurs, as a midfielder. And that's just one example. So there's a lot of story there to go out. Obviously, but maybe not everyone else does necessarily, that I write fiction, really. And, as a fiction writer, not, writing novels, you want, it's about characters, really, and plot. And he, Solskjaer, he has a very interesting character and a heck of a lot of plot to his life story. So, excuse me, that was kind of the reason why, really.
One of the interesting things with Ole, and I think a lot of people don't realise this, is two things, really, two sides to it, is what he went through in terms of that sort of struggle and the way he was able to end up at Manchester United as a player and then as a manager, it's almost like a fairy tale, a lad from Norway managing to get to Manchester United and then become the manager. And also the toughness to him as well. There's a sort of harder side to Ole that some people don't see. They think he's this sort of soft, cuddly, happy-go-lucky type guy, but there's a real toughness to him as well.
Yeah, and to take that second point first, maybe, he is tough, but not in a nasty way. So it always seems to be when it's deserved. Someone deserves a rollicking, he has to get tough with his player, has to get a little bit steely with a member of the media, whoever it might be. It's not like done in a nasty way or a sour way. It's done in the right way. And yeah, I mean, you just sort of say there to a certain extent, who would have picked, let's say out of that amazing crop of players he was part of the squad for forwards, and apart from Ferguson, actually, maybe, I'm not sure many people would have picked Solskjaer as the one who would come back and be the manager of United. I think one of the reasons why people, or certainly why I love sport, why I love football, is the drama. You don't know what's going to happen. That 99 final, I could give you loads of examples, is a really good illustration of it. And so for his story, as I say, he nearly went to Spurs. And if he'd gone to Spurs, as Jerry Francis was the manager at the time, had him scouted 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And in the end, he went with the chief scout, John Moncur, to this under-21 game between England and Norway. It was the only match they could find midweek that Francis could go to. A place called Stavanger in Norway. Phil Neville actually played for England under-21. That's when it was 95, I think it was, maybe 96. I know I should know that. I can't quite remember. But what I'm saying is, if he'd gone to Spurs, if Jerry Francis had turned around and said to John Moncur that night, not for me, thanks, because that's what it's all about, football, opinions, obviously, then I don't think 99 would have happened. I'm 99% sure it wouldn't have done. But that's the beauty or the sort of drama of a kind of a fairy tale, which I do think it is a fairy tale, his story. I think it's like what I say about the book a little bit is it's sort of full of true fairy tales. And he's had tough times, like Cardiff. He absolutely bombed. But there's stuff in there where a player tells me that, he basically was told by Solskjaer that he was dropping him because he'd been told, this is Solskjaer, by those above him at Cardiff, that he had to play another player for him. And when you're hearing that stuff firsthand, the player's called Ben Turner, it's interesting, but it sort of throws a sort of different light on what happened at Cardiff. I think he's always taken responsibility for it. He would never say that's the reason, but it can't have helped. You understand what I mean? But all these things are hopefully of interest if you want to read about him and find out. Also how he can deal with where he is at the moment. The Everton game, he needed a result. And he got one. And I honestly think that because he's done it a few times, and he obviously doesn't want to have to get results when he needs to sort of save his job. But I do honestly think I'm not that surprised because of what his track record's been when he'd been at Cardiff or Mulder as a player, what people were telling me. And that's why it's been interesting, because when I started writing it, you'd just beaten PSG the first time, knocked him out anyway. And then you sort of nosedived. And I was watching this thing unfold in real time while I was hearing all this stuff. And I was thinking, crumbs. Is he going to be sacked? Is he going to survive? Well, according to this person at this time of his life, he's got this about him. It's been very interesting to watch. I mean, it's certainly been a roller coaster if you're Solskjaer, players, obviously fans of United. But as the writer, it's been a roller coaster as well, because you think, well, it's not going to be amazing for sales if the guy who the book's about is out of a job. But here we are, and it might sound slightly, not ridiculous, but a little bit unrealistic. But I still give him a chance of having ultimate success at your club, which is winning a title. People could scoff at that, and I don't blame them. That's up to them. But that's where I am with it. And people say, "Oh, it's because you've written a biography of him." Well, of course it is, because that's informing my opinion. It's a little bit like when people say, "Oh, Solskjaer only got the job because he's Solskjaer," and it's like, well, yeah, because he understood the club. He had the history. He felt at home there. He could go in there and take over as a caretaker and cheer the place up, which was initially part of what was needed after Mourinho. So, we'll have to wait and see. But it is very interesting and exciting watching this story unfold. And that game at Everton, they basically mashed them, didn't they? United. They basically went there and did an absolute job on them. And you think, well, why couldn't they have done that, in Turkey? And Arsenal was a bit of a wet, damp squid. But that's, he's searching for that consistency that all the top teams have. And maybe what we're seeing is towards the end of this sort of up and down cycle, maybe not. But, this is why I suppose we like sport, because you never quite know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. It has been a real roller coaster, I agree. Obviously, Jamie, a lot of research has gone into this book. You spoke to loads of different people. What was it like researching something like this? Because, you're talking about a man and a player who's obviously been in Scandinavia, he's been in Cardiff, he's been at United. It must have took you, quite a while to research it in the way that you did.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to, I think, close to 50 people. And obviously what happens is you start off with a blank, you sign the contract, you start off with a blank piece of paper, you have nothing at all. You don't even have any numbers or what. You don't know the story. You just don't, apart from obviously the stuff that's known anyway. So you have to start digging. And once you start digging, you get a couple of results here, a couple of results there, and that leads to other stuff. And you start to gradually build a picture. Then you start to think about, right, what's the structure going to be? What's the chapters going to be? What's the actual story I'm telling? Who is this person? And what's a good way of telling his story? And I think what's interesting about a biography is someone else, like say if you were to do one, would completely have maybe not necessarily, but probably have a different way of writing about him. And that's, that's kind of part of what a biography is.
It's a great book, and everyone should check it out. The Red Apprentice by Jamie Jackson. Jay, it's been great chatting to you, mate. So that was Jamie Jackson from The Guardian and The Observer talking about his book on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, The Red Apprentice. You check that out. Have a look at the other videos we've got as well on the channel, all the podcasts, all the latest news coming at you as well from Stretford, Paddock. I've been Jay. Don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.